Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption.
Hey, good evening everybody. Militiaman and Crew here tonight. It is Friday. It's probably about 6 o'clock, I believe, somewhere. So let's get started. The Central Bank of Iraq today stressed the need for all commercial operations, including the sale and purchase of cars, to take place in the local currency and not in dollars, describing the exchange rates circulating in applications and communication sites are unreal, and the only real price is the official price. There you go. So they're narrowing it down to, like, look, we're going to use the dinar, not the dollar, for commercial transactions, and basically the prices of goods and commodities are going to be determined based off of their the central banks the central bank is not going to provide dollars for those items. Okay, they're going to only finance limited travel and import of goods from a few merchants, and basically those merchants are going to have a good reason. They're going to have to know their customers. They're going to have to know the end result of the end result to the beneficiaries of who gets the money. So they're not backing down off this new electronic platform, this new system that they're talking about. So it's really kind of a good thing. So tonight we're going to see that the Sudanese government is serious about fighting currency dealers. And there's obviously some information on social media and different places that it's not a good thing. They're basically suggesting this is our livelihood. The sad thing is that for 20 years it has real close been illegal. The dinar is supposed to be the main currency. It's on the Central Bank Law 56 from 2004. So we're pushing 20 years that they've been sidestepping that law and getting away with it. They're actually pointing the finger at the politicians. So in one stretch they're talking about that we have a reform project. We're going to stick with the reforms. We're going to go into a market economy, an investment budget. 2023, 24, 25 budget is for investment, and yet here we have a black market. They like to call it a parallel market, but to be fair, it's an illegal market, and that's where these currency dealers are going to find their new job, quit grafting. They've basically stated that some of the quotes that they've had on the Iraqi stock exchange and other platforms that are basically just fake quotes for the parallel market concerns. They've been publishing all this data for all this time, and it's basically fake news, not unlike in the Western world. There's a lot of information that you got to take in the good and throw out the bad, and there's a lot of bad fake news out there. So hopefully that what we're going to see is that we can decipher some of this stuff, and that the new Sudanese government is serious about fighting these currency dealers. The central bank is trying to meet the requirements of legitimate trade, and merchants have begun to register on these bank platform. The bank platform, we talked about this, the Central Securities Depository System. That's got to do with the ISX. It is an electronic system. There's new systems that have been come into play. They have to have databases on the merchants. They're going to have all that. They're working on that, or they already have it set up. It's probably a pretty quick, fast, and furious system. But again, they didn't just get started on this. The 14 banks that we heard about that kind of were sanctioned, but yet not sanctioned. They were put on restrictions. And then what they've done is they've stated, look, all banks in Iraq can be hooked up to this Central Securities Depository System. And what that means to me is that they had a time frame to get set up. And we talked about that on my last video. So if you want to go back and check that out, you'll see a stage where I think we're going to be very consistent in what we talk about, that it'll help you get a grounding of this is for real. This is a system that's not going away. The electronic platforms have been aggressive in their behaviors, in the way they work to catch corruption. We have an article that suggests that there was a gentleman or no, a group of people that collectively got tapped for 3 trillion dinar. Okay, and they were, well, some of them were sitting behind bars. Maybe not all of them were sitting behind bars, sadly. But the bottom line is that they're working on fixing that corruption, and that the database for the merchants is going to be organized. It's going to be fast and furious. So keep in mind, because look, there's been many arrests. The Sudanese government is not standing down from his reforms. They're taking action. The CBI and the finance ministry and others, they have a push on to get into a market economy, and we can see that because of the Development Road Project, the Silk Road Project, all these different things that are happening. Those are investment circumstances. We have the European Union trucking accession that they've talked about. They have the total gas and oil, all of that. We have the electricity situation. I guess there's been arrests recently, as of early as today, in respect to the fraud that was involved in the electricity for the country. Key thing, Iraq, their banking systems all need electricity 24/7. ATM machines, for that matter, need electricity 24/7. Sounds like they've are getting to that. That's not public today in this particular news, but that's what I'm getting. But I would say that the likelihood of that coming out in the next little bit, you'll see that that's true. Basically, though, look, when I got to this part of the article that came out, it's not even an article that came out from the Central Bank of Iraq. It is basically a sentence, and it's a complex sentence. So whoever wrote this thing knows what they're doing. They did it for a purpose, and it's to the point. Basically, what I'm going to say is that the sovereign guarantees are important. The Central Securities Deposit System has a time frame on it. That's going to start as early as they say specifically on the CBI's website that will be August 7th is implementation day. The way that reads, that they have been notified, banks, all banks in the country, were notified 14 days prior to the 1st of August to be set up and ready to go on this new system, and also that they have up until implementation day, their words, not mine, August 7th, 2023. Okay, so what that could mean is that sets a stage for them to be able to have the ability to funnel money into the Iraqi stock exchange from international circumstances, not just internal. And that's really, really big, because going international, the amount of money that will flow through their stock exchange is going to probably be astronomical, and it's going to be good for them. It's going to be good for the Iraqi citizens. It's going to be good for investors. It could be good for you and I. So it's a powerful thing. Take it seriously. It's coming to us now. Let's see. Here's one that reads that a battle resisted by the state and the central counters parallels with surprises. Yeah, the battle resisted state and central counter parallels with surprises. That's the article. It's called The Dollar, a battle resisted by the state and the central counters parallels with the surprises. So they're talking about the central government. Anyway, this is a decent article that we all should pay attention to. You can find it in Patreon and in Discord in the chat room. All these articles that I go over, you can find, I would say probably many of them above and beyond what I talk about are in our Patreon Discord chat room. Okay, so check that stuff out. It says a dollar crisis is not a crisis, but a battle between the state that insists on completing the reform of the financial and banking system and a damaged category that is a group of speculators and smugglers. Although the current crisis is coming to an end, specialists saw an explanation for its repetition, that it is compound and has political and economic dimensions. So basically what's happening here is that they've got two things going on. You've got the political side, who's voting for effectively for this new budget, the 23, 24, 25 budget, investment-wise. And then you have the parallel market, the illegal black market. And they talk about it, it is a political and an economic dimension. Well, the economic dimension, we all know that it's about money. Political side is about money and power and whoever's in charge. And so those political guys that say they want to do one thing, but they're also involved in another. That's what we talked about, is that the smugglers are being arrested, the money exchangers are being tapped. You have all of that. So basically, the Iraqi economy is effectively in the hands of politicians in the sense that the politics lead the economy. So they're going to be on the table for this, and they're not going to get out from under it. They have to be able to facilitate trade legally and in an orderly fashion. And those that didn't want to do that, they suffered the consequences by being arrested and called on the carpet. In other words, if you've got tapped for 3 trillion dinar, you're going to have to return it. And then if they don't return it, they're going to probably have a long relationship with some steel bars. Basically, it says that the central bank issued several decisions related to the banking sector. The deputy governor of the bank, Amar Hamad Khalaf, promised yesterday other decisions will be issued next week that may contribute significantly to reducing the dollar exchange rate. So they're talking about reducing the dollar exchange rate. They can do it in the official sense, or they could be considering that to be the parallel market sense. Well, in my view, if you paid attention to that, how this has been going down, is that the quotes for the black market, or the parallel market as they were calling it, were fake. So basically the corrupt were cheating the corrupt. And some of them were complaining about they got caught doing that. I mean, that's fascinating. But keep that in mind, because the parallel market, if they bring it up anymore, or the black market getting in sync, probably would say that it's really simple for them because they've been doing it fake in the past. Why couldn't they just say, well, hey, by the way, we were at 1570 today, tomorrow we're at 1320, and the next day they say they're at 1,000. Could they do that? Well, they've been doing it for years, 20 off and on, so I don't see why they couldn't do it. But the bottom line is, in effect, once they go to a blockchain new system, they're going to have real-time quotes. It's not going to be fake, and therefore we should see something happening on that in the next short period of time. The central bank has new decisions that will be issued next week. This is an article that just is reiterating in a different manner that what that article just said is that there's something happening next week, and we all know that their beginning of their next week is as early as tomorrow. I mean, forgive me, Sunday. Sunday, banking system, making decisions, having to deal with the budget, having to deal with salaries, having to deal with all of the things that we're expecting could as easily need to be hinged on specific decisions, okay? The instructions that we've been waiting for, instructions for disbursements or allocations and disbursements so they can start spending, all of that is exchange rate oriented. The hydrocarbon law, they said they had a new draft yesterday. That's going to be exchange rate oriented, value related. The country is going to need value related to their currency, okay, their issuance. We're going to see some things that they've talked about, some educational things today that is on a Friday, and they're educating their citizens about exchange rate, they're educating them about currency issuance, the need for security features in currencies, all that kind of stuff. But in this particular article, it says that the central bank identified 3 categories of exchange companies for selling dollars to travelers, and while revealing a proposal regarding the entry of imported goods through border crossings, it indicated that there are new decisions that will be issued next week that may contribute to lowering the price of the dollar. Okay, so that they have a new package. We've had probably 1, 2, 3 packages so far that the central bank has talked about. Is this the 4th package? It surely looks like it. Is this the final phase that they're going to be in? It sounds like it. We'll have to watch and see how it goes. but basically there are decisions that will be issued next week. So they've decided on something. They're going to tell you about it next week. Could be as early as Sunday. That will contribute to lowering the price of the dollar to the exchange rate of the dinar. Keep that in mind. There's a new electronic platform that the central bank has been working on and has been developing since the beginning of this year. And all dollar sales to citizens are done, okay, to the citizens legally through this platform that is closely monitored by the central bank. So basically, people are getting, they've been in the past have been investigated, if you will. They've been monitored. They weren't playing by the rules. And again, we saw guys getting arrested and they were on the table for 3 trillion dinar. And so that stuff's going away. So I can see where that people that have been involved in this for 20 years, where they say 99% of the exchangers have some problems. That's a lot of people. So we have to watch and see how that turns out. Wish them all the best. The central bank submitted a proposal to the ports and customs. Now remember, taxation, all the imports, exports, merchants, they need to be documented, and they need to have this on this new system, basically stating that the proposal at the ports is about entering goods and services through the merchants that are financed through these imports through the central bank. Basically, that's going to be all through proper channels through the dollar. But one of the interesting things here, and I'm not sure if it's translation or not, because sometimes we see that the translations vary on a regular basis, but a lot of times, even though they vary, they mean the same thing. But in this particular case, this statement says the central bank submitted a proposal to the ports and customs, which is that any goods entering Iraq must ensure that the merchant financed these imports through the central bank. So they want to guarantee where they came from. He says that they're pointing out that, quote, the printing of the Iraqi currency will not be random. I've been pondering this particular sentence here because what they're talking about is educational. They're telling people educational items. It's almost like this sentence here, when they say printing of the Iraqi currency, or maybe they mean the use of Iraqi currency, will not be random. In other words, it's going to be they're going to print new currency for some reason, or they're going to show new currency, or they're going to use new currency in the future, but it will not be random. In a sense, it will be meant for a purpose. It's not a random off-the-cuff thing. It means that it's going to be for a real purpose. And then they go on to say, in another statement, it says that there is no fear of any increase in the monetary mass. So they're not going to, if they do print a currency, not being random, it's meant that they're going to do it for a purpose. So in this case, there's no fear of increase in the monetary mass, which would be deflationary, well, or it'd be more depreciation of the value of the currency if they increase the supply of currency on the street, it's going to devalue the currency. And what they're stating is there's no fear of an increase in the monetary mass, therefore there would be no reduction in the value of the dinar. They're talking about the dollar, okay? So, and then it goes on to explain that other decisions will be issued next week. So they keep reiterating next week, which may contribute significantly to reducing the exchange rate of the dollar. Again, like I just said, this is their quote. That's what their goal is. So we don't want to have to fear about printing currency, even if they're going to talk about currency printing in some of the education that they put out, because they explain both sides of the equation on occasion. Okay, so there's a really good bit that I put together in Patreon, I believe, that goes over what the central bank says in respect to creating the monetary mass. Basically, the CBI in this particular case is giving the citizens reassurances to this matter, in the sense that they're openly talking about, hey, there's no fear, take it easy, we've got this covered. It says that these decisions will be issued next week with significantly reduced exchange rate of the dollar. So the citizens, they've heard this before, but hey, there comes a time when crying wolf goes against you. So I think Al-Awlaq, I think the finance minister, I think Al-Sudani, who's been on record for saying these same things. Look, these accounts that they're putting together for the Central Securities Depository System, it got started those 14 days before August 1st. Implementation days on the 7th. Look, these decisions that are going to be made next week, Sunday being the beginning of next week, all of these things are going to have impact. The black market goes away as we know it once the Iraq changes their exchange rate, because if they put value to the currency that it's above the dollar, there's not going to be a need for it. That's probably why you see some of the panic in this particular cases, because there's going to be people that are going to be out of jobs. But the bottom line is that their jobs have been illegal. It's been part of the corruption, stealing from each other, stealing from the public, stealing from the citizens. Stealing from each other is what I find is the humor involved in that one. But look, the 23, 2024, 25 budget is expected that we're going to get allocations. We're going to get those allocations, disbursements. Firstly, though, the instructions are going to be needed, which they said were going through the courts. They're going to have to be on the table in a very short period of time, and that could be as early as this weekend as well. So the last thing I'm going to talk about, I think, is it's not always a bad option. And from the central bank, it says, when should the central bank print more currency? So that's what we were talking about earlier, is that it's not a bad thing to print more currency if it's done for the proper good of the country, because look, currency wears out, it gets torn, it gets damaged, they have to replace those. And then sometimes when you have the project to delete the zeros, which still exists as per the central bank governor, Al-Awlaq, is that if you're going to reduce the note count, we saw a documentary video of them specifically reducing the note count, destroying money since probably 2018, 2019. We don't know how much money that they have destroyed yet, but they will probably disclose it because it'll be a necessary thing for disclosure for the world when they go international. People are going to want to know what their money supply is. But the bottom line is they were printing or destroying and tearing up that money, making little pellets with perfectly good money. So those of you out there on the internet that are doing all the math and saying that this doesn't work, if you don't know how much money they've destroyed, you don't have good calculations. So be very careful on telling people that it's not going to happen. And when it clearly is showing that the Central Bank of Iraq, the Finance Ministry, the World Bank, the U.S. Treasury, and everybody else goes against what you're saying. So be fair in your analysis, and if you have any support for that analysis, bring it out. Show the links from the CBI, show the links from the U.S. Treasury, from the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization, so that we can see those and see how you support your evidence. Okay, that would be the smart way to go about it, and it would be greatly appreciated. Okay, the next thing is that the central bank denied the existence of an intention to print an Iraqi currency recently. So in other words, they said there was no fear. Here it says there's no fear in increasing the monetary mass. And then here in another article, it says they denied that there was an existence of any intention. So in other words, we have a lot more fake news that's out there. It's pretty common, especially here where we are. But it says it's required to print a currency according to expectations for the growth of domestic product and population growth. Well, that's what they do. That's why they print new money. The population growth for Iraq has been about 2.5% annually, meaning that the volume of printing should reach about 7.5 trillion. But it says if, okay, keyword if, it is known that the volume of cash in existence reaches 100 trillion Iraqi dinars, well, there's going to be an issue. If you overprint, it goes against the value of the currency. But they want to have an existence where they compensate. They try to keep a balance. And it says, indicating that the printing of the currency is not always a bad option, but rather it must be in a balanced manner. So when you take away the destroyed, you take away the currency that they did destroy, or the ones that's torn, needs to be replaced because it's illegible. They got to do that, so they have to compensate and they have to balance the currency on a regular basis. So keep that in mind. It says here that if the print exceeds determinants, there will be a problem. In other words, if the print goes against how much that should be out there, obviously that becomes a problem. And the equation is that the state has dollars and the central bank is obliged to compensate it in dinars. And that is a correct way of doing it. So they're openly educating everybody. It says most countries in the world reprint their currency approximately every 10 years. It's no different than with Iraq or the United States or Great Britain or even Japan, China, anywhere else. It says they do this with specifications and codes that complicate counterfeiting process. What do we hear in the news lately? Counterfeiting this, smuggling that, counterfeiting here, there, all these different things. So, and we would expect to see that at a time when there's going to be a value change. They're trying, the corrupt, the nefarious, they're going to try to, game the system. And they've obviously been gaming the system for many, many years. So it says, pointing out that the category in Iraq's case of 50,000 Iraqi dinars includes 12 secret codes, while the category of 25,000 dinars includes 7. Basically stating that the exchange of small currencies is supposed to be done every year. So the smallest ones do those quickly because they're the most prevalent on the street. It says that the 5 to 10,000 is changed every 5 years. And so for the rest of the other categories, because of any banknote that is torn or lost by the citizens, they're obligated to basically compensate on a regular basis. Okay. Here it says that the supports, he emphasized that they support the printing of banknotes higher than 50,000 dinars. And there's a reason for that. They would pump them in to take and sop up those smaller category notes as they would replace them with new small category notes. The smaller category notes would be being the 250, the 500, and the 1,000. That's what these larger notes will do. And then in the future, say the 25K, the 50K, and the 100K that's left over, if they have those printed, will sop up all those smaller cash notes. And they do two things. It sops up the note count. So if they want to destroy those, they compensate with that 100K note. It swaps out for 425s, for instance. And if they want to keep those 100s, they have to give less to carry. So whether that's going to the internal banks or not, that'll be for them to decide. Most likely what's the logical aspect is that the 50K and the 100K notes will be used for interbank in the future. The currency, if they issue 5 or 6 new notes, 1s, 5s, 10s, 20s, 50s, et cetera, you follow the logic. If they issue those alongside the bigger notes, they're going to be able to be in country side by side effectively for a period of up to 10 years. If you look at the Turkmenistan model that's out there, we've talked about it. It's open. You can Google it. It's on the IMF's website. It is a model. You can look it up. I would suggest you do so. It's a long read, but it's very informative. So anybody that hasn't read it before, check it out or come into Patreon with Militiaman and Crew and ask for that, because I think people can help you get you a link to that, okay? But basically, look, the timing of these articles about the money, about the currency, about doing the things that they're doing is important, because education is an ongoing process in Iraq. It's going to be an ongoing process for the citizens as time goes on, because once they change the value of their currency, they're going to have different denominations, and they'll even probably have a need for coins. So that's going to be something that, or they call them fills. Those are going to be things that you're going to be looking for in the short period of time. Basically, there's always been a need for security features. The more value the currency has, the more features they tend to have, okay? So here coming in the future, these small category notes are going to have significant value. It's at least going to be better than the 1310 that we're seeing right now. Basically, if there was going to be a value change move at 1310, we wouldn't be here having this conversation tonight. It had already been done. So here's some key points. The central bank submitted a proposal to the ports and customs. We went over that. It says that any goods entering Iraq must ensure the merchant's financial, that these imports through the Central Bank of Iraq, and that the printing of the Iraqi currency will not be a random situation. So basically they want to know who the beneficiaries are, who's getting the money, is it legit, is it legal, and if so, on the platform, so be it. Remember, the banks all have accounts They all have an implementation day to look forward to, or to be up and running and ready to go for that day on the 7th, which is a Monday. Basically, look, when we talk about reducing note counts, think about the digital dinars can also make it easy for compensatory issues. So in other words, when they go to an electronic platform, you bring in 3 category notes, they can make an adjustment electronically into your account. It's quite quick and easy. So the ledgers can balance, they can do all that stuff. And basically, remember this, here's a quote by Al-Alaq. It says, the rise in the exchange rate, my time, meaning his time, it's going to be on his time. He says, Al-Alaq, the rise in the exchange rate, my time, end quote, and the project the project to delete the zeros still exists, okay? Delete the zeros from the exchange rate, not from the currency. Will they redenominate the currency over time? Of course they will. All right, pay attention to how you read things, pay attention to what the CBI has to say, and also, of course, if you like my channel, please subscribe, come join us in Patreon, come see us in the Discord chat room. It's vibrant, it surely can show you where the true value is of being a Patreon member, so we'll look forward to it. And if you like the content, keep it going, helping us, hit the donate button. Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content, subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.